Hi, welcome to Thrifty Fibres. My name is Essie. I use she or they pronouns, and this is my little corner of YouTube where we do fiber related stuff, try to stay warm, and try to not go completely crazy in the long, gray, dark northern Michigan winter where seasonal affective disorder is a big problem. That is a terrible intro. So today I don't have too many finished objects. I just have a couple of socks and but I do have a lot of in progress on the needles projects that I got started for Christmas. And yeah, let's get into it. And you know, Bud is gonna join us because orange cat. Can I do this, Bud? So I finished the 2 pairs of socks that I was working on. Got this pair these are just basic vanilla flap heel socks. This is in Rellana Funny Ball. This one is the Blueberry 1686, and this is the Pistachio. This is 1683. Knitting these up, I did these on 00s for the cuff and size 0 for the body of the sock. This yarn is quite coarse. It is, I don't currently have it. I think it's a 75-25 wool and nylon. It is a bit on the coarser side, but it's socks. That's fine. Hopefully it's sturdy. Hello, Bud. Hi. Hopefully that means it's sturdier. In general, I did like knitting with these balls. They're very convenient. This is after a whole pair of socks. There's about 2 repeats of the color left in here. So there's a good bit left, not enough to make another pair of socks, but 100 grams, it's not gonna make 2 pairs of socks anyway. The only thing I disliked about these balls, and it most impacted this pair, and I forget which sock, because the ends are all woven in already, but in both of the balls that I've worked with so far, there was a cut or break in the yarn. So it was tied together, it knotted together, which normally I don't mind too much, but it did interrupt the color progression, which I don't necessarily want the socks to be completely the same anyway. I mean, these two are completely different in terms of where the colors are, but vaguely in the same order is nice. And this really disrupted, that break really disrupted the color pattern. And so I ended up, I ended up pulling off almost a half a color repeat in between where it broke and where I could pick back up to make it look even remotely like the same pattern, color pattern. So that was kind of frustrating, but you know, it happens in sock yarn sometimes. This was a little on the higher price point for that to be happening. I mean, I kind of expect that with like $6 for 100 gram yarn, not, you know, $12 for 100 gram yarn, but you know, whatever, it worked, it's fine, I worked it out, and I didn't need the full 100 grams. I think it'd be a bigger problem if I needed the full 100 grams. So I didn't, it was fine, it worked. So that was actually all I finished this last week and a half. Excuses aplenty, but mostly being really tired, sleeping, and traveling. But yeah. Moving on to what's on the needles. So, I started a couple of things. This cat licks like a puppy, and it's very distracting. Well, let's start with the socks that I'm working on. This is another Rellana Funny Ball. This is 1681 or Berries color. It's very pink. On the listing when I bought it, my friend said her dad was wearing lots of red socks or just red in general lately. So I was like, ooh, red. This is not red. It's very pink. So these are not for him. I actually got a really pretty yarn for him. I'm very excited about that. But this pair will be another gift set. It's just vanilla, regular sock. Like I said, I like to have socks on needles all the time. They are pretty mindless. That's one thing. The rest of it, oh no, these aren't for Christmas. These are mittens I started. And I actually paused because I need to go get my swatch that I did. Move it, cat. Oh, God, you're heavy. Right. So a few years ago, I had these amazing felted wool mittens, and they were gorgeous. They were lined. The outer layer was felted, so they were pretty waterproof. Yeah, pretty waterproof. I never had wet hands, but I lost them somehow. I tend to lose winter gear, which doesn't make sense because most of it goes in my cedar chest or in my hat box. If you hear the cat, he's yodeling in the basement. That is his favorite hobby. Anyway, so last year I started making some mittens. This is obviously a very large mitten, deliberately so. It was meant to be this large. This is the Squirrel, what is this? Squirrel Oak Mittens. I used KnitPicks palette in Clover, which is the green. The dark brown is Grizzly Heather, and the inside of the cuff is Almond. These were leftover yarns from the Shawlography MKAL a few years ago. Anyway, I did this in double knit because well, number one, I thought it was really cool to just have double knit, no floats. It made it a little bit bigger, which I had thought about felting it down. Once I did that, it gives it another layer. And then I realized I won't be able to see the pattern. I don't really like them. It didn't come out. I mean, the pattern's very pretty. It's not the pattern that I don't like. It's the colors. You can't see. There are oak leaves and acorns kind of throughout. And you see the acorn. You see the acorn and the squirrels, and these are all oak leaves. And it's just really hard to see in the colors that I chose. So I figured I could repurpose this yarn and do something else with it, because I figured once it's felted, I already can't really see the pattern. I won't like it as much once it's felted. So this year instead, I got this book, Mittens from Around Norway, at my library, my local library, and I love it. I tried actually, let me see if I can find it. There's this really cute pattern. It's called Snowflakes, and it's got kitties on the bottom and big snowflakes on the back, and then some little snowflakes on the inside. And I started doing that with the green and orange leftover palette that I had. And I didn't like, again, the color mix, it just wasn't there. Also, so when I'm doing stranded color work, I usually do two hands. I use the main color in my dominant hand because I do English style flicking, and I use the contrast color in my left hand, and I try and do continental picking that way. But holding the tension in my left hand just hurt. And it wasn't, surprisingly, it wasn't the knuckles that I have my splints on, it was this set of knuckles. So anyway, I decided no color work for this winter, even though I absolutely do want to make those mittens sometimes. And then I also remembered you know, after I looked at the colors and I didn't like the ones that I had, I remembered I have all of this homespun that I did for my, well, there were a couple. There was the Slipstravaganza shawl and another shawl that I have that I did out of homespun that's green and purple, and I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, I have all that yarn left over from doing those two projects that I could use for mittens. But I think that's going to be a next year project, and I'm just going to content myself with non-color work for now until I do want to try and figure out how to do, there's a technique for English style knitting where you hold both colors in your right hand. And I do want to figure that out, but I want to take my time and figure that out and not figure that out on a pair of mittens that are so tight and small that it would just be awful. So anyway, I went with this pattern. This is the ridged mittens from that book. These are not done. I don't have the thumb in here. But I love the texture of this stitch. This is just knit 2, purl 2, kind of staggered, and it's super stretchy. I probably will lightly block this, but it doesn't really need it too badly. I did a swatch of the knit 2, purl 2 staggered ribbing, and I felted it just to see what it would look like, and it really, here it goes, it really destroys the texture when it felts. So as much as I want a pair of felted gloves, this is not the pair that I'm going to felt. So these are going to stay unfelted. I absolutely love this new technique that I learned though. So it's not very visible. These are on the needles with Clover and orange. I have to, reason I brought this out at all, I have to take this apart because I'm out of the Clover color. So this giant mitten is coming undone later today so I can finish mitten 2 and the thumbs. But the technique that I learned in knitting these is from this book, is to, instead of, when you're knitting for the thumb, normally you take, so for example, there's 10 stitches here that you take off, put on a string, and then cast on however many stitches you need in the next row. Instead of doing that, since the stitches are equal, this technique has you use a contrast color and knit the stitches, and then put them back on the left needle, knit the row as usual, and then when you're all done, you pick up the stitches that you need with your needles, and then you just get rid of the contrast yarn, and you've got the whole, and you don't have to have any cast on or bound off stitches. So this is another pair of mittens I'm working on for one of my nibblings, out of the scrap yarn from the funny ball, the pistachio funny ball. I assume it looks familiar. So this is almost done, but I stuck this on one of my nibblings that I saw last weekend, and the thumb was way too huge, and it was the decrease edges, so I have to take this out and start the decrease a little bit earlier. Well, here comes Cat. But that's how that technique works, and it was so easy to just pick up the 10 stitches on either side. I picked up two stitches. I picked up 2 stitches on either side, either of the narrow sides, and that was it. It was really super easy. Highly recommend that technique. So this is the other pair of mittens that I'm working on. My aim is to make all the nibblings, the younger nibblings mittens. There are 3 under 4, I think. The oldest of that set just turned 4. The other ones are all adults. That's terrifying to think about. Or 17, I think the other one is. I feel old. So those were the fisherman's mittens, actually, this pattern. and this is, so the Fisherman's Mittens were a really big Aran weight felted down pattern, and I just took the base pattern and did it with sock yarn on size 0 needles. It's really all I did. I just kind of played with the gauge to get it down this small. I will link the website I found with average hand measurements for small children. I found very useful. I did talk to my sister, and she measured the length of her kids' hands from, middle finger to the bottom of the hand, but that doesn't, give you like the little thumb measurement and whatnot. And then having put this on the oldest of the 3 this last weekend really gave me an idea of like what this would. So the oldest is 4. The thumb was way too big, and his fingers went right up to the edge. They really filled this mitten. So this mitten would not be good for a 4-year-old. Essentially, it just fit. And I want them to be able to use it for at least the whole winter, ideally 2 winters. Also, it's really uncomfortable if you have mittens that like just fit. It just makes your hand cold. So this might be a little big for the 1-year-old. That was the aim, was to give it to the 1-year-old. I think it might be a little bit big. But I'll keep thinking about that. It might go to the 2-year-old. We'll see. Yeah, so that's the mittens that I've been working on. The last on the needle thing is the St. Brigid's sweater that I did the swatch for. I finally got it. So the St. Brigid sweater is from Aran Knitting, and I am doing it on some hand-spun Coopworth from Hidden Valley Farms. This is Emerald Lane colorway. It's a really deep green. And I really hope I don't run out of it. I bought a pound. I was gifted a pound. I didn't buy the pound. I was gifted a pound. And I might run out, which makes me really nervous. But we'll see how it goes. And if I run out, I'll just unpick it and do something else with it. But I hope I don't. This leads me into a spinning conundrum that I am having. So let's talk about my spinning. So this is the first yarn I ever did in a thicker 4-ply. So I often do 3-ply for my fingering weight yarn. I really like the 3-ply because it gives a nice texture. It's rounder, more tubular, I guess, than the 2-ply. I've made 2-ply before. I discovered 3-ply and I really liked it. So that's what I've been making. This was my first 4-ply. It's also my first DK weight. So this is between DK and worsted. The aim was DK. I am not perfect. This is also really quite a dense yarn, unintentionally so, which is why I'm a little worried I might run out. Yeah, I think I might have about 800 meters, and I think I need like 1,000. So I really might run out. And also they're out of this roving on the Hidden Valley Farm website. So one thing I realized when I was knitting up this swatch, so I haven't spun all of it yet. I still have an entire 8 ounces that I haven't even touched, as well as some like little bits left on the bobbins from the first 8 ounces that I spun. This ended up very dense and a little bit ropey, which I haven't had that problem with yarn for several projects now. Anyway, I had in my purple and green, I have a hair in my eye that I can't grab. That's driving me nuts. In my purple and green shawl, there's the light green I made is a little bit on the ropey side. It was like the third or fourth set of 4-ounce comb top that I had ever spun. But since then I haven't really had a problem with ropey yarn. This was a bit on the ropey side, so I went back with a couple of the skeins and I loosened the ply. I have no idea if this will help. I'm going to retest the swatch. I'm going to make another swatch and see how it goes. But partly I suspect the singles are too dense. I remember as I was making it, I was worried I was making it too thin for a DK weight, and so I was letting a little bit extra get pulled into the wheel rather than using the same size that I usually do when I make fingering weight yarn. In retrospect, doing the same singles for fingering and just adding a fourth ply probably would have been fine. But anyway, I used my drop spindle to loosen the ply a little bit. I just spun it backwards in Z-twist a little bit by bit. So I have 2 of these done. I think I have 3 more balls, 3 or 4 balls left that I'm going to loosen the ply for. It did give me a little bit more length. So this one was originally 68 meters when I measured it, and when I measured it after loosening the ply, it was 72 meters. Not a significant difference, but I thought it was interesting. So that's been my spinning trials and travails lately. I did try to do the ply fixing on my Nano. It did not work. I only half expected it might work. I have trouble plying on the Nano anyway. I usually ply on a drop spindle. The Nano just doesn't seem to like the thicker yarns. Doesn't like to take up the thicker yarns. It will spin them just fine, just it won't put them on the bobbin. If you have any solutions for that, let me know. Anyway, that's where I'm at with spinning. I will be unplying and replying things for a while because I have 8 ounces to do, and then I'm going to make a new swatch for St. Brigid sweater. Other than that, I've been doing pin loom stuff. Got a lot of these Hexis. One that is not sewn up, but yeah, the rest of them are. This is mostly, you can see, I remember doing this. I found 1 ball of Peyton's Croy. It was this, I don't know what color it was, but it's like a gray, blue, black color. And to make a pair of socks for adults, you need 2 balls. But I found this ball 50% off, and I was like, oh, maybe I can find another ball somewhere. I can find the other ball somewhere. So I had started making the socks just in case. Never managed to find them, so I pulled apart the socks 5-6 months ago, when I was just kind of like organizing all of my fiber. And yeah, so I'm gonna have a lot of these colors because I have an entire ball of sock yarn that is in this color. But that's okay because they're all really fun. I really like it when they kind of get this plaid look to them. This one's fun. I like this one. So that's where I am at with the Hexis. 2, 3. 22. I have 22, which means I probably have 50 total. I need like, I think when I calculated it on a quilting website, I needed like 320 or something like that. But I have a lot of sock yarn still, so we'll be making these for a while. And that is all when it comes to fiber stuff. I have some repair projects that I'll be working on this next week. I had a puppy tear in one of my sweater cuffs that I need to fix, and some other darning stuff that I'll be working on. But nothing particularly interesting. Yeah, and that's all. Thank you for joining me today, and let me know what you're doing in the comments below. I will leave all of the information about the patterns and yarn and colors and all that stuff in the description. And thank you for joining me today. Bye.